This webcast will explain many of the reasons and ways to process the food for people with swallowing or chewing problems so they can eat as close to the normal of a diet as possible. The emphasis is going to be on taste, flavor, texture, consistency, and size. We'll discuss the types of food that can easily be eaten by people or the foods that need to be avoided because of these issues. We'll talk about how to modify the foods so they can be eaten safely and the type of kitchen equipment that you'll need to do this process. We're also going to review some other topics that are important to remember when processing foods for modified diets, such as taste, presentation, and consistency. As a rule of thumb, you always want to make sure that the food tastes good and is very safe to eat, but in the same token, you don't want to over-process the food. Over-processing the food can cause it to be too watery and also takes away from the flavor and texture of the food. Today I'll be giving you a quick demo on how to puree an apple. I've already peeled the apple, but you can also leave the peel on depending on doctor's orders and the swallowing ability of the customers. I did add a little lemon juice to it and some water. So let's go ahead and puree these apples. Now you always want to add the liquid in a little bit at a time. I'll go ahead and add a little bit more water to it. The reason you want to add the lemon juice so the apple doesn't brown too quickly. Looks like we're almost there. I'll add just a little bit more water. Okay, our apples should be ready. Looks like we have the right consistency here. Put this to the side. Always be careful, this is very sharp. Now this process here, you can do this with any type of other fruits such as pears or bananas or peaches. I'll go ahead and spoon it right into the bowl like so. And here we have it. Some nice pureed apples. You could do the same process with other fruits such as pears or peaches. You could use different types of fruit juices like orange juice, apple juice, or even the fruit juice from canned fruit. Now as you can see here, there are different textures of food. We have the whole apple. This is an apple here that's been grated. And then we have our pureed apple. So now let's just talk a little bit about food that cannot be eaten either because of their texture or their size. Because there are certain foods that can be eaten safely if they are modified properly. Now in order to modify foods properly, it's very important to have the right utensils in order to help food to be chewed and swallowed safely. For instance, I have this food processor that I probably would use for this apple. I would first cut the apple in 4 pieces, take out the seeds, maybe cut it into a couple more pieces and put it in the food processor. Then I have this banana. The banana can easily be mashed with a fork. Right here are some cooked carrots. For the carrots, you can easily mash them with a potato masher like so. Over here I have these large pieces of chicken breast. First of all, you would definitely need a knife to cut them into smaller pieces. Now depending on the swallowing ability of your customers, you can cut them into even smaller pieces using the knife, or you can run it through the food processor and use a little liquid with that. Over here I have this grater that you can use for something like carrots. You can easily grate that, or you can even use it with some apples, depending on the swallowing abilities of your customer. Now, while we're on the topic of consistency, let's talk about the different levels. The consistency level does vary from customer to customer. So it's very important to check with the doctor to find out what's the best way to process the food for the particular customers. Some customers can eat foods that are lumpy, some prefer food or only can eat food that are smooth. If you have a doubt, always go with the smoother version. Now, since the amount of liquid in food varies, the amount of thickener that you add to the food will also vary. You also want to add the liquid gradually because the amount of liquid that you add will give you the proper consistency. Let me give you some examples. First, we have this apple in its natural state. The next thing would be to soften it. You can cook the apple. We do have a good video step recipe and a photo step recipe of a cinnamon apple. If you were going to use a banana, we have a nutmeg banana recipe. The next would be the mechanical soft consistency, where you could either grate it or chop it up, like so. And next we have the puree. Now let me show you the different levels of consistency. This would be more of a pudding consistency. This is like a nectar. And this is liquid. So there you have it, the different levels of consistency. Now, while consistency and safety is very important, it's also very important to pay attention to the presentation and the taste of the food. So keep this in mind as we talk about this a little bit later in the liquid section of our presentation. Now, it's also very important to keep in mind the types of food and the amount of modification that they may need. You have foods such as applesauce or pudding that can be eaten as is. Then you have items such as a banana that can be mashed like so. Next we have an apple. The apple can either be cut up into small bite-sized pieces, it can be run through a food processor, or even grated. Other raw items such as carrots or hot dogs definitely need to be cooked and cut into smaller pieces or even run through a food processor. And then you have items that need to be avoided such as peanut butter, candy, nuts, or popcorn. So now we're going to use the different techniques that we've learned in the various meals for the day. For example, most breakfast foods can typically be eaten without much modification. You definitely want to avoid eating syrup. So for pancakes and waffles, you can use either some pureed canned fruit or some pureed fresh fruit. Now for lunch, typically a sandwich would need some form of modification. Once you've assembled your sandwich, like so, you definitely want to start cutting it into bite-sized pieces. I'll carefully cut it like this. And cut it into 4 pieces like so. Now you may need more modification. I'll go ahead and cut it into smaller pieces. Now you notice I'm being very careful with my fingers. Now if it needs additional modification, such as putting it into a food processor, so I'll go ahead and put my sandwich into the food processor. Like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a little liquid. Now, like I always said, you always want to add the liquid gradually. So add a little bit of liquid, like so. Let me start the process. It's almost there. Now all I need to do is just add a little more liquid. And that should do it. Now when it comes to food modification, snacks can definitely be an issue. Many snacks are so hard and dry, it makes them very difficult to chew and swallow. Today I'm going to give you an example of how we can convert the graham crackers into a slurry to make them very safe to eat. First of all, I want to go ahead and break my graham crackers into smaller pieces like so. And I'll go ahead and put them into the food processor. Now once I have them into the food processor, you can either use a liquid such as milk, or you could use the juice from canned fruit, or even some water. But today I'm going to go ahead and use the liquid from the canned fruit. I'm going to add a little liquid here. Now always remember to do it gradually. Let's put the top on. Looks like we need a little more liquid. This liquid you could always save some in the refrigerator and use it later for other items. And that should do it. Now another way to modify snacks is to simply soak them. This is great for after workshop snacks or after dinner snacks. This is also really nice because the food item does maintain the shape, so it's very recognizable for the customers. The way to simply do this is just put your snack item in a bowl. Then you just take some broth, or you could use water. You just add enough liquid to totally coat it. You can even take a spoon and just kind of push down on it like so, just to make sure the entire food item is coated with the liquid. And then you can just go ahead and let it soak for at least 5 minutes. Certain items may take up to 10 minutes, but like I said, doing this in advance will definitely save you some time if you are busy and doing other things in the house. Now, like I said, this process works very well with water or even some milk. Other snacks that you could use this with are pretzels or some cheese puffs. We also have some very nice tasting snacks where we have the carrot ranch puree. We have a video and photo steps of that. Now for dinner, don't forget to always make sure that your plate has half vegetables, a quarter starch, and a quarter protein. When you have the meat products, you definitely want to go ahead and cut those into smaller pieces. I'll go ahead and take our chicken and put it on the cutting board like so. Then I'll cut the chicken breast in half. Watch your fingers. And then I'll cut them into even smaller pieces. Now, once you have these smaller pieces, you can determine if you're going to put it in the food processor to process it some more. So we'll go ahead and put our chicken right there on the plate. So now you're going to decide if you need additional modification, such as running the chicken through a food processor, also processing the macaroni and cheese, or mashing the cooked carrots. Now, as far as fruits and desserts are concerned, you do have a wide variety of choices. Just keep in mind that some may need to be mashed, some may need to be processed a little bit more, and others can be eaten as is. So eat safely and enjoy. I've noticed sometimes that many people just tend to use water or milk just to liquefy the food. But to add a little more flavor and to still liquefy the food, I suggest some other items such as low sodium soy sauce. We have some gravy. You can add some soup. We also have some beef broth or chicken broth. You can still use the milk. We have some salad dressing. Orange juice always adds a little zest. So does some lemon and lime. And of course you always have water. Now, to add some additional flavor without making the food too spicy, there are a lot of items that you can use. I have a few examples in front of me here. I have some mustard, some salt, and you have some cinnamon or some ginger. My favorites are always some garlic or Italian seasoning. You also can use some oregano and even ketchup. Now, don't forget, we all eat with our eyes first, so presentation is very important. Don't ever blend the food together so it looks all mushy and unattractive. A great way to make the food look attractive, you could use scoops or you could use spoodle like this, and you just simply scoop it up and place it on the plate, and it looks much better and the customers will enjoy it. Make sure that the food is separated so you can see that this is the meat, this is the starch, and the vegetables. The more attractive the food looks, the more the customers will enjoy it. Now, when it comes to medication, it is vital to consult with the customer's doctor before doing any alteration of the medication. Many people tend to hide the medication in some applesauce or pudding, but a great alternative is hiding it into some pureed canned fruit.